Hey, welcome to episode 68 of the PoddyC. This week, Dinars have been announced, and there has been much discourse on the internet about them. So we will continue. We will add to that discourse with our episode. What
I
do you guys
actually
think
haven't
about the
even
Dinars?
I haven't even heard your all's takes on it. I was pretty busy last week, so I missed the initial drop, and I also missed. I normally give a Dratnos video a listen. I would normally give a Dorki stream a listen, but I haven't been able to do all of that. So I have my thoughts about it, but I'm really interested to hear how you guys think. Especially, I think Dorki and Dratnos will probably have varying different opinions because of your focus in the game. What do you guys think?
Yeah, I've been busy, so I haven't given my takes on it yet, but I am extremely Dobby, so we'll start off with that. I have almost nothing positive to say. I'm just gonna say it straight up.
Mm-hmm.
It's just gonna be straight up negativity the whole
Yeah,
time. I have been radicalized by this change.
Oh wow,
that's not surprising. I feel like all Mythic for the people. I think of all of the factions of players in this game, the Mythic Plus, not the Mythic Plus only player even, but the Mythic Plus, if I could spend all my time in one way in WoW, it would be doing Mythic Plus. Those players, regardless of whether they raid or not, those are by far the most upset and the most vocal. This is not what we wanted, kind of thing.
yeah. So, and Dorky, you're a cutting edge raider, right? You will have access to
Yeah. So
these items yourself.
yeah, don't get me wrong. This will massively benefit me. By the way,
me too.
I'm not the one affected by this, but I do feel very strongly against this. I feel like it really hurts the game, and it really hurts the players that I largely play with, and I guess kind of used to be, sort of.
Yeah.
I mean, I guess I've always been rating, but yeah,
You still when you look in the mirror, you still see an M pluser, right? You're not.
Yeah.
That is the main thing that you are in this game, right? Yeah. I'm also pretty negative about this. I would say I'm not full on Dobby, but I'm pretty sad about how Dinars have worked out because I was such a huge fan. So Dinars in the seasons they were in did so many cool things, and this current version that Blizzard's putting out does half of the 4 cool things that it did in those faded seasons. And it's the point where it's man, I would be happier if it just never was announced, and I think they would probably be happy if it was never announced either, because it's so nerfed. The only thing that it's nice for is it's the main function that is preserved with this implementation is bad luck protection, right? If you kill Gallywix 10 weeks in a row and you don't have a Jaster Diamond and you don't have an Eye of Kazan, cool, congratulations, now you have them. But
okay, but I mean, if you're going to make the bad luck protection argument, which okay, that's a service that is good in this game. Are there people who killed Silken Court 10 times and didn't have a Spy Masters, right? For sure, there is a need for something like this. Not to say it couldn't be better, but if you're going to make the bad luck protection argument, how on earth do you not include Mythic Plus, Mythic track pieces? Because that's the thing you actually cannot obtain in this game unless you are extremely lucky over the course of a season if something is like this. So that's where it loses me on the bad luck protection. How could you include one but not the other?
So not only that, I wouldn't even consider this truly a bad luck protection, because realistically, a lot of guilds are just going to kill these bosses once, and we're just going to acquire the loot right after by just purchasing it, right? So where really is the bad luck protection when you're just killing that boss and you just give a loot, right? It's more of deterministic loot than it is bad luck protection. But I mean,
there's
a lot
not bad.
of people
It's not bad that exists.
Yeah.
And I had some people mention to me okay, Shadowlands Season 4, Dinars give you the normal item, and you had to kill mythic bosses to get the mythic upgrade token to make it mythic. And I think in a Mirror there was no restriction like that. You just got the loot. Now, I think, and Blizzard has said this a few times in interviews, I do not expect the entire community to listen to interviews and be fucking tapped into that. Maybe, it's kind of our job to do that. But they have said, we're going to roll this out really conservatively, not only in length, but in what we're giving you. And they kind of keep saying, because we can't roll it back. An example of this is the Catalyst, right? You remember the 8 week into the patch Catalyst, everyone's holy shit, this is too late. And now the Catalyst is actually pretty nice. I think the way the Catalyst works in the game is really good. So before saying anything else, I think whatever Dinars exist in a regular season, which do have to be different, I think, than faded seasons, it's going to be better a year and a half from now than it is right now, probably. As far as their actual implementation of it, though, so I was starting to think like, okay, there's some use for this. It's not surprising they did this. They've been kind of saying they're going to do something like this, but I still think so. Like, what they're afraid to do is just like give you a piece of loot that you haven't earned yet. And I think I kind of agree with them at the beginning of a season, just not 2 or 3 months in. I just feel like what are you afraid? Like just giving basically anyone a free mythic raid trinket or item 2 or 3 months in doesn't mean people don't raid anymore. I don't think. Maybe that's their fear, but I just feel like it's totally fair to, even if people do just want the free loot. And for a lot of people, I think the people who are the most mad, not all, but the most mad, I think are the people who are like, I don't really like raiding. I don't want to have to get 20 people together. If like raiding was 5-man, 10-man, I'd be there, but like 20-man's a huge barrier. The schedule Mythic Plus is like anti-schedule, right? You can kind of just log on and do it whenever for most people. And I have an aversion to all of that. And to those people, they just don't really want to do raid, and they see raid trinkets, especially in this patch. I wonder how relevant it is in this patch that the raid trinkets are all fucking crazy good, and the raid items. Like, that has not been true in most seasons. Like, 1 or 2 of your best trinkets are dungeon, which again, there still needs to be a way to acquire that, by the way. But this patch specifically, the raid loot is super fucking OP. And if they want to lead you in that direction, it's okay. But you have to understand that people who like basically love this game as a pure Mythic Plus player are going to absolutely hate that. And I think they have made their feelings very, very heard.
So there's a couple of things to unpack. First is when we were talking about the interviews. Initially, Blizzard did say it was going to be similar to Dragonflight Season 4 Bullions and Shadowlands Season 4 Dinars, and they intend for them to have their own upgrade track, which is supposed to scale to a maximum rank of 14, given enough Crest and Valor Stones.
Oh, so from like LFR all the way to the end of Mythic.
Yeah, like the Dragonflight ones.
Yeah, so like you were basically given that item and you were supposed to just like upgrade it all the way. So that was the expectation, and like it was a huge part of this patch, right? It was what a lot of players were fully expecting to come in the 0.5 patch. We had a great season so far. It's been super fun, and plus the raid is great, the vibes are great, the class balance is like an all-time high. And for them to just like suddenly rip this after people were fully expecting to get some type of Dinar system just feels extremely bad. And the second thing too is they did mention here why exactly they're afraid to just hand it out, I guess.
Do you have a link?
I think they did say, this blue post in the most recent one. So basically what happened
Dratnos?
is Frank will put it in post. He loves doing that kind of thing.
He loves it. Yeah, he loves
that.
Yeah.
They buffed how many Dinars you get, right? So we went from 2 Dinars to you acquire 1 right away on May 13th.
Yeah.
And they said specifically how they didn't want to go back on the whole you need to kill Mythic to acquire Mythic items. And they said something about, what does it say here? Without undermining the core motivation for the challenge and coordination required in Mythic raid progression. So it seems like they are exactly going for that, like where they want you to enter raid and they want you, and that gear is supposed to be the core motivation for completing the raid.
Yeah. It's just, I mean, it does feel like this is one of those things where you read a blue post and you just feel like, well, that's not true. That's not true. That's not true. Like, you look at this blue post and they say they have this thing about like they don't want to give people gear that's going to be that they will never upgrade past next season, which is like the worry of if you give people Mythic, like Myth Track, Eye of Kazan or whatever, House of Cards, they're going to keep it for all of 10.11.2. But like, that's not true unless that person is literally only an LFR raider, and even then they probably would.
Yeah,
right? Like, you replace Myth Track with Veteran Track of the next season. It goes to a higher track, right? It goes to a higher eye level. I guess it'll be the same with the extra bump the Myth Track is going to this season. But like, we're talking about a player who doesn't then ever get access to Champion Track gear, which you can get from like medium tier delves. That's the person that like we've got to nerf the system to make sure that those players they're not carrying over an item from the previous package. What about Cersei Circlet? What about the Cersei Circlet that those players are all still wearing right now?
They're still wearing, yep.
Yeah, I'm wearing Cersei Circlet on 12 of my 13 characters, and they're all 660 plus.
People in Tournament Realm are still wearing Cersei Circlet.
that like, okay, all right, we're okay making people go do a stupid island thing content, but we're not okay with giving it for these dinars for people like actually doing, you know, the main content of the game, right? Like raiding and on the lower difficulties, right? Like that's the thing is I think you could change the word mythic to heroic and this would be so much better if you made it so like, okay, if you kill Gallywix on heroic, you can buy Gallywix items from dinars. Like that would be so much better than making it mythic requirement.
Yeah, I've
or
heard
even
that
if you just
complaint a
did
lot
the
too.
you could do the thing that Shadowlands Season 4 did, right? Like people were talking about, well, in Shadowlands Season 4 you needed to do mythic. Yeah, but you didn't need to do all the bosses on mythic. This season, the only good items from the raid come from the hard bosses at the end of the raid. Yep. It's not like Aranog had good loot and you know, Primal Council had good loot. Vexy and Cauldron of Carnage, those guys have no good items. So Dinars feel so bad to get if you're somebody who's not killing One-Armed Bandit Plus, because all of the good items come from One-Armed Bandit Plus, right? And if they made it like Shadowlands Season 4, at least they could make it so it's like, okay, you have to get a certain number of kills. It's faster if you're full clearing the raid, but like as long if you can do some 2 out of 8 runs, you can get this in 5 weeks or whatever. I mean, that would still probably be too many, but at least you'd be like getting something if you could do those first few bosses on Mythic. But this time around, if you're not in a situation where you have to be super coordinated, even way after all these nerfs, killing One-Armed Bandit on Mythic is not something a lot of people are going to be able to do. And that's like the only place that Dinars have good rewards. And even worse, if you're progging, like if you are progging those later bosses and now you're like, okay, well, I've got to use my Dinar to buy hero track items so I can kill the boss. And now
that's so bad.
Now I can't use it to buy the myth track items. Like, I don't know, man. I feel like there should just be a rule at Blizzard that's like, hey, if we're going to make a system and everybody's going to go yuck at it, instead of like, we should just try and make systems and
who's not going
release
yuck?
things.
Right. Like who isn't saying yuck to this?
There's one set of people, and that's raiders who enjoy M+ or suffering. And that is a large part of my personality. But even that part of my personality is not enough to make me enjoy the system.
Dude, yeah, I mean,
it has become a largely M+ versus Raider thing.
Yeah,
you've seen Raiders be like, I have to fucking spam Mythic Plus, and I hate it at the beginning of every patch to get my gear, and here Mythic Plusers just want fucking free raid shit, god damn it.
Yeah, which is actually a problem in itself too, that I want to talk about later. But for this specifically, it's like you were saying, Dratnos, it's kind of weird how you don't get it from doing heroic. So if you want to get a heroic piece, you can do LFR. You can do LFR, and if you kill an LFR boss, if you kill LFR One-Armed Bandit, you can buy a heroic House of Cards. So doesn't that like kind of undermine heroic raid? And then
so I thought about that too. I had a lot of chatters be like, you know, I just don't understand the Mythic thing because they did LFR through heroic in one thing and then the Mythic was separate. And to me, at least, that as long as they're going to do this, I'm not saying they should do this, that makes sense, because basically hero track at this point is like fucking whatever. So it basically includes everything in hero track and below, and Mythic track is clearly the thing that is different, that is sought after. So seeing those things grouped together, I think is like kind of doesn't matter.
But it's not necessarily about the track, it's about the items that come from it, right? Because like myth track items are kind of whatever. I mean, it's still a pretty big deal, but it's whatever because it's more about getting the House of Cards itself.
Right.
But I think, like, I mean,
go ahead, Dorki.
I was gonna move on.
Oh, okay. Well, I want to say about the difficulty thing, like, oh, it doesn't matter because like Mythic track thing isn't always good. Like the early bosses are bad. There's a line of thinking that says that that's correct. Like having the best trinkets and the best things come off the hardest bosses near the end of the raid is a like loot philosophy that totally makes sense. Rather than the opposite of that, where all the loot off let's just say polar opposite, the loot off the last bosses sucks and the loot off the easy bosses is good. Obviously, for someone who never wants to enter raid, you're like, fuck yeah. But for like game design, that's stinky, right? Stinky, bad. So that's where I find this interesting is the issue in this raid is they kind of did how loot should work. If you're just looking at raid, they did it right. If you're following that line of thinking, but it's also where it's caused the biggest grievance because they're so powerful, and Mythic Plus trinkets are in this patch, maybe uniquely this patch, I know it's been true in a few others, are like way far behind. And I've wondered if like maybe a way they can alleviate this. By the way, they could totally just change Dinars and just give you free piece of loot. You should reward people. If people are still playing your game all the time at the 0.1 patch, just fucking give them a free trinket, man. You know, it's really not that deep. But let's say they do want to continue doing something like this. They should always make sure in every season that a Mythic Plus trinket is like really competitive and like really close, and the actual like delta between the best Mythic Plus trinket and the best like very rare raid thing, and then that kind of gets into the whole conversation of like, why does very rare exist if those items are not fucking sick? Because the rarity has to make sense for the power, and that's a whole other thing. But like, or even just like a non-Mythic Plus trinket, like every patch, just make sure by like week 3 or 4, if you really wanted it, you could get a there's like a little vendor, and I don't know what it costs, but you can just buy a Mythic Track trinket of any stat. It's just a static secondary and static main stat on one trinket.
That would be BIS for so many people.
Yeah, an OG stat stick, just straight up. And then the alternative to that, where it is like, you know, just like a little babby 2-minute on use or something. And that just exists every patch. You know that exists. It doesn't need to, you can be more creative with the trinkets because at least those as a baseline exist. And I think that alone, because like, would people in Mythic Plus be fucking losing their minds if, you know, whatever, what's the House of Cards? If like House of Cards, if there was like something like House of Cards, super generic, even a stat stick, like a lot of those sim really good. They do good over the entire dungeon. Like if those existed, there wouldn't be this need of feeling like I have to raid.
So there are some good plus trinkets this season, right? There's the wax, there's the signet, there's the pacemaker.
Like okay, I mean, they're all good, but they're just not.
It depends on the spec you're playing, right? Like Moonkin, right? Moonkin are using wax signet, right? Usually, so it's like 2 plus trinkets.
No, it is nowhere near as good as Moxie's.
So it's just people are using it because they don't have the Moxies.
What do you think about this theory? Is it like the BIS theory, where like basically, okay, let's say you have 2 trinkets. It's the second best trinket, or I guess, for the sake of argument, you should say the third. The third best trinket is pretty easily obtainable from Mythic Plus, and it is 1% behind the top 2, which are both raid trinkets, or 5% behind. Do you feel the same about those 2 things? Because even though the difference is greater or smaller, it's just not BIS. Like, how much does something being BIS matter versus how BIS it is?
How BIS
I think it definitely matters how BIS it is.
Yeah.
But
because if it's like 5%, that is egregious. That is bad.
A lot of people defending the Dinars make the argument that it is like a mythic Jaster versus a hero Jaster is a 1% difference or something like that.
Dude, oh man, there's a lot to cover. But so I want to say my biggest gripe with this whole system, like at first I was like, oh, you know, like it sucks and all, but at least it's like it's still nice to have, right? Like it's still nice that people can get Raider gear. But then the more I thought about it and the more I talked with other people about this, the biggest problem I have with this by far is the rich get richer. Right now, there's already a pretty massive discrepancy between Mythic Raiders and M+ers. Like, if you look at a Raider, I was looking at this literally just the other day. I was comparing 2 boomkins, 2 top boomkins in the top 10. One of them is a Mythic Raider, and one of them isn't. And let's not even get started with the Chinese players, by the way. The Chinese players, those motherfuckers are out here buying gear from Raid, getting like literally 10 item levels on everyone else. They're like astral gapping any other region in M+, and it's not even close because of just how insanely geared they are. So like those guys are gonna get even insanely richer. But right now, like there's like a 4 to 5% gap between the boomkin that's mythic rating and the other top boomkin that's not
like
mythic rating
output-wise?
at all. Yeah. Like I simmed their characters, and I was like comparing my character too with like Goops. By the way, I killed more raid bosses than fucking Goop, and somehow this motherfucker has more gear than me. And it's just like, so if we add on this Dinar system on top of whatever exists right now, like that Mythic Raider is straight up just gonna be smurfing the hell out of the M+ boomkin. And like again, this doesn't affect me because I can just purchase this shit and it doesn't matter. But for my fellow M+ players out here, especially a lot of the people who like used to raid, so like, you know, like Evade, Greg, etc., like all these people that don't really raid anymore, they just feel like they're getting outscaled so hard, and it's just such a problem. That's my biggest complaints about this whole system.
Yeah,
like, I would rather just not exist at all.
In another way, the rich get richer is, if you are selling mythic Gallywix, congratulations.
Yeah, you're straight up literally getting richer.
The demand for that has gone through the absolute ceiling with this change. So
I thought that would be true, and it might be true for some guilds, but if you were already selling as much as you can, which I think right now, most people that are killing Mythic Gallywix at the most could sell 2 spots at a time, so you're 18 manning. Learning the 3 heal is like something that probably isn't worth your time. So like it's 2 manning, and because it drops 3 mounts, the person who's buying Mythic Gallywix, you're not going to be able to pay most people aren't going to be able to pay to like get one of those runs because you're competing with someone who's buying the mount, which is tens of millions more than just the kill. So like, and because you can't carry 3 or 4, 4 would be all 3 mounts are there, and then you're selling the 4th spot to someone who just wants the loot unlocked for the Dinars. I don't think that market really exists unless people were struggling to find sales anyway, and now instead of they were unable to find I don't even know how much it is, like a 25 million mount buyer. So now they're just selling like 5 million just regular kills. You don't get the mount, and maybe those exist. I just think early in the season, until it gets nerfed more or we get more powerful, it's going to be really hard for anyone to actually even find these carries.
Yeah, I think it more means like in 2 months' time, Gallywix might have been a 4 million to buy a run thing, and now it's going to be like a 15 million or something in 2 months' time.
Yeah, because the demand is much higher.
The demand will be higher for that. But
and
again,
that's be more durable.
But still, that entire demand falls below, because every guild would still prefer a mount buyer because it's always going to be way more. So like, you'd have to run out of mount buyers, and it's like one of the coolest mounts fucking ever. Too.
Right.
Like, I don't think you're going to run out of mount buyers.
It's the easiest end boss to sell since Ragnaros or something, right? Like.
I doubt even once they nerf this boss that like every guild is going to be able to find like 3 mount buyers every week for every run they're doing. That's not so. Like, you will find a way to like fit in these people.
What usually happens though is like you'll have buyers for Bandit itself, and then you'll have buyers for Muggsy, and then you'll have
those bosses are going to be in demand now.
Very,
for sure.
Very true.
Yeah, I mean,
so you're just gonna have a lot more.
Have you guys seen that already, Dratnos? Have you guys sold to people who want the Dinar thing? Because we haven't.
Well, we've only been doing like 8 out of 8 sales anyway, so I guess those people have gotten they've gotten more bang for their buck than they thought when they were first buying it.
Yeah, I think we kill Gallywix like 3 or 4 times a week right now, and to my knowledge, we have not received any inquiries or anything that isn't a mount buyer, and I don't know when that's going to stop. But also, like, we're going to get more sales than other people, right? So maybe it's a
Yeah, I mean, we've been pretty consistently getting. We're only selling like 1 buyer for 1 Gallywix currently, although that's going to go up, I think, next week or the week after. But I I can empathize with the people who don't Mythic raid, because I have a bunch of rat alts. Like this season, I was so excited to play Mage in Keys because I was like, oh man, this season I know I'm going to be able to get the good trinkets on this character and like if I get my vaults every week for the first few months of the season, I'm gonna have like full myth gear and good trinkets, and I'm not gonna have to wear these stupid delve trinkets. And my guy's gonna be like, I'm gonna have Abyss Mage because I played it and I'm still playing 2 months into the patch, and like that was a really exciting thought. The desire to log onto that character after this announcement has dropped precipitously for me. And
that's what
such a sad feeling.
Me personally the most. The fact that it's not account wide, because
which actually we don't know for sure.
But
yeah.
Oh yeah, sure.
I'm assuming that
I guess they
will be
haven't
character
confirmed, but it's very likely. Yeah, like
I feel like it should be
I've killed Mythic
wide.
Gallywix, so I should I should at least be able to get it on my alts. But the fact that like I can't even get on my alts is complete trash.
We don't know for sure on that one. It reads to me like a character specific thing. The fact that it's a quest to get the Dinars as well, instead of being associated with the Raid Renown, which is account wide, which is another weird thing. This was originally on the Raid Renown track, and now it's going to be this quest system, which means like
maybe that's why
if you miss a week, there's no bad luck protection or no catch up mechanic, right? Like and you have to do it on all your characters instead of just once for your whole account.
That just seems like it's underdeveloped. Like that sounds like something that anytime something like that has happened, it has been fixed within a few weeks.
Yeah,
which does beg the question of like, why isn't it already like that?
Yeah, well, I mean, they had it right on PTR. Basically, like the version of this that they had on PTR was going to make this patch not only have the best 0.0 of a season, right, but also have a really good 0.5 and 0.7. And now it's like, man, it's so sad. It's like such a own goal.
Yeah, so there's been a lot of raider claims that we need to address here.
Okay.
I've been reading some absolute rage bait, like I swear to God. So this entire discourse has just been like basically M+ versus raiders, right?
Yeah.
So one of the claims is, oh, well, I mean, just raid, right? Like, why can't you guys just mythic raid? Like, bro, first of all, I'm sure there are a lot of M+ players or just like players in general that would love to mythic raid. In fact, I would say heroic players in particular. There are probably a lot of heroic raiders that would love to heroic raid, except that it fucking requires 20 players and it requires a scheduled time to like get these 20 players together. And I don't know, there's just like so many accessibility issues to Mythic rating that it's not necessarily about if Mythic rating sucks or not.
Yeah, you dislike the amount of players needed more than the content itself.
Yeah. Well, I mean, like it would be fine if the amount of players required was still high, but it just wasn't as big of a problem.
As hard.
Getting to get, yeah, I mean, whether it's as hard or whether it's like because of the lockout in particular is a major problem.
Yeah, lockout.
Because like if you could just like kind of just show up whenever, right? Like if you can just like show up and be like, all right, like we can get Timmy in for this raid, and then like if he can't play, then we can get someone else, and that wouldn't have been a problem. Except you can't really do that for Mythic rating. So like that's like the first problem. And then the second claim is when raiders say you don't need the gear. Like I hear there's so much like, oh, you don't need the gear. You're just doing 12s, blah, 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 blah. Yeah, well, shut the hell up. You don't need gear either. Fucking Liquid cleared the raid at 663. Why do these guys need gear? Like, who the hell needs gear? Like, it's not about needing gear. I just feel like people just don't get it.
Well, even if you were to make the argument like, oh, you don't absolutely need you don't need that gear to time that 13, bro. Like that whole argument, it still feels good to have the best gear. Like it's something that, like if you look at Classic, like why was Classic popular specifically with raiding? I would actually talk to my own raiders that did this, and it's like, hey man, it's like super chill to do the content to get the best gear in the game. And for some people, that's either what they want or they really appreciate that. They don't want to be going super hard all the time. Now I understand why retail is different, but the whole you don't need to even say like, oh, well, you don't need the best gear. Well, what if I want it?
Yeah. Like that's my mage, right? Like my mage is never going to do any content where it realistically matters that I have a myth track versus hero track House of Cards, right? Like that is going to be completely irrelevant, except for the fact that it's like that is the fun part of the game is gearing. Like Blizzard has successfully made gearing and making your character's items better a fun thing to do. And so if you design a system that then, dangles it in front of people's faces and then yanks it away, like that's going to feel really bad.
Yeah, that's a good way of putting it. And then I've also heard people say like, oh, it's only a 1% gain, except, like we already talked about this, like straight up, we have characters that are like 5% to like upwards of 10% stronger. I mean,
yeah, which, again, like the specific item, the fact that you only get originally it was going to be 2, but even with 3, like you want to purchase Jaster Diamond, Jet Pilot's Go Pack, 2 trinkets and a weapon, right? Like that's 5 things that you want, and you can only get, you only get 3 of them, right? So like if you have to use any of those on purchasing a hero track version of the item, like that feels really bad.
All right, the cloak is fucking overrated, right?
Yeah, I mean the cloak is definitely the one of those that you don't take.
Saves you some crest, maybe has good stats for a lot of people, but like, bro, that cloak is so whatever.
Yeah.
And I mean, I would say gear is usually a bigger problem in M+ than it is in raid, because like your value as a player is heavily determined by a couple of things. It's determined by your IO first and foremost. It's determined by the class you play, and then I would say it's your gear, right? Like all that stuff is heavily factored in, and that's why M+ers care so much about gear. Because like when you're a raider, it's kind of whatever, right? Like you're already married to your guild, and your guild will probably just like has you in. Like it doesn't matter how dog shit your gear is, as long as like they like you as a player or as your class, whatever it may be. But whereas like if you're doing M+, your gear is literally your identity. It's like it determines if you get invited to groups, or it determines how much value you are to the group.
Also, like the survivability end of it, right? Like often you're, we're talking about like, oh, it's 1% more damage or whatever, but like on the margins, a little bit more stamina is a huge deal as well for high keys, right? Like even though it's less of a one-shotty season before, which is great.
Really
it's still really nice.
Stamina and max HP is the most slandered and misunderstood stat in this entire game. It's so fucking good.
Yeah,
that is true. Yeah, so like the whole like, oh, you don't need gear, like, bro, but fish don't get it, man.
Yeah, then like you don't need it.
I don't think anyone thinks they're making good faith arguments though. Yeah, this is all basically an extension of like stop fucking complaining. So they're just like coming up with anything to dunk you, and none of them are like great takes. They just want you to suffer.
Right, which is again, I respect it. I respect the.
Yeah, that's a large part of your personality. You understand.
Yeah, that's very true.
Okay, so the last one that's really annoying is when they say harder content should give more gear. Oh, that is a rage bait for sure. Like, bro, I don't want to hear about harder content needing to give better gear. I mean, if that's the case, then I think high keys should also give gear, and I think getting gladiator should also give.
Yeah, I think so too.
It has. There's been some seasons where it has.
Like, honestly, why does a 15 or a 16 or a 17 once a week or a month or something not give you a mythic track thing from that item, from that dungeon the first time you do it each week?
Yeah, we also need to bring back PvP gear. I remember when all the fucking raiding mages were complaining about having a PvP for badges. Yeah, well, get in the arena and let me just see how much you'll enjoy that.
See, this is the same thing the other way, though. Now you're just like, I just want to fucking spite these people that I've read these bad takes from.
Yeah. That's that they all were radicalized by something like that from an M+er. Right? Yeah. Like that's no, they probably
I think here's the issue with the argument about like the hardest content should give the best loot, because I think most people in a vacuum would agree with that in like any game, by the way. Like that just makes sense. However, in WoW, in PvE specifically, remove PvP entirely. Just in general, by the way, just fuck PvP. But the like in raid in the first 2 weeks of a patch, doing the mythic end boss and the entire mythic raid is inarguably the hardest thing you can do in the game, and at that point it does give you the best loot. The problem is Mythic Plus's difficulty kind of stays the same because you're able to do like whatever the highest key is available for your gear, and your gear continues to go up, right, for a high key player. So like your difficulty increases and like stays like kind of stagnant, and raiding difficulty literally goes down. You cannot argue it. Like the raids are a certain way, they get nerfed, and even if they didn't get nerfed, you get more powerful, so the bosses just objectively become easier, to where if you're a raider specifically saying like this is the hardest content, that becomes less and less true like every day, or I guess every week. So now it's like at a certain point in the patch, you could be doing a Mythic Plus dungeon, and it is absolutely, whatever key level you're doing is absolutely harder. It requires more from you than getting cutting edge, than killing the last boss on Mythic, yet it doesn't award better loot. So like the difficulty shifts depending on when you're doing the content.
Yeah, the way I see it is Drogo's guild gets cutting edge every tier halfway in, and if those motherfuckers are getting myth track loot, and there are guilds that are worse than them, then I think they should just fucking hand that shit out for free.
Are there guilds that are worse than them? Has that been scientifically proven?
Possible? I mean, according to like guild rankings and stuff, yeah.
Okay.
I mean, that's just how easy rating gets towards the end.
Yeah.
But the real challenge is PvP, so we got to bring back PvP giving the best gear.
Yeah, bring back Shadowlands Season 1, where we all had to get 2400 for our 233 weapons.
I just found that so funny on the Venruki episode, which, by the way, Venruki, my goat. He was great on that episode, but when all PvPers say their favorite time to PvP was the beginning of Shadowlands, I just find that so funny, because it's like, of course it is, because you were just fucking slaughtering PvEers.
It's like it's like people who don't want skill-based matchmaking in their same first-person shooters, right? Where it's like, I would love to just beat up on people who aren't good at this game.
For doing RPGs really with the boys and winning is a top-tier experience, and if you're losing at all, it sucks. That's the truth.
Yeah,
but I also do agree that M+ loot is too powerful in the beginning. I feel like gearing just needs to change. I heard Tettles talking about this, like some idiot boomkin from some other podcast. He was talking about how like gearing is like really powerful at the beginning of the season in M+, but it tapers off really hard, and raid is like the opposite. And I do feel like that is an issue too. I do feel like they need to somehow make it so M+ isn't infinitely farmable. Because I mean, every season has boiled down to that. It doesn't matter what type of player you are. You could be an M+er, you could be a raider, you could just be like someone who plays the game. The beginning of the season is literally just spamming M+, right? It's like trying to get as much of your hero track loot as possible, and I feel like that shouldn't be the case. I don't know. Am I crazy?
I feel like the gearing system is like, it's pretty good. Literally, all they need to do is make the Dinars good, and then the gearing system is great, in my opinion. Like,
I don't even understand how you could, like, the way, like, Mythic Plus being what it is at the beginning of a season is kind of the way that Mythic Plus looting makes sense. So, like, trying to imagine something different than that is a complete. You could argue, like, hey, they should completely overhaul this and make it better. I just don't even know if that's likely to happen.
Well, but what about delves? Like, delves are kind of like that, where you can't infinitely farm it. Well, you can infinitely farm it for like champion track or something, but if you want to get like hero track, then it's
you get one hero track piece per week.
I'm just gonna make up a complaint here. Like, you get one hero track piece per week or 5 or something, and it just takes it. Remember how people were like farming haste mastery rings and shit, and just being unable to find great rings in Mythic Plus. Now imagine you just couldn't even deterministically do that after a certain amount of, like, you just don't ever get you're a month and a half into the season, and well, the 5 hero track things I looted weren't this really hard to obtain thing. I guess you could make the argument that they would just make each specific piece easier to obtain, so you don't have to do Mythic Plus if you want to. Like, basically, if you want to target farm 5 Mythic Plus pieces, those are the things you can get this week, and you don't have to farm it. We'll just give it to you. It just sounds so different.
Yeah, I don't know. Like I feel like the new patch, the start of a patch is fun. Gearing up a bunch of guys in M+ is fun. I'm somebody who raids and does M+, but like even the people who don't do M+ outside of the first few weeks of the season in my guild, I think enjoy the first few weeks of the season. You know,
Maybe they do,
keys,
but I
though they're
swear
not
I
key
hear so many
people.
raiders complain about how like, oh, it's so dog shit when you have to infinitely
Yeah,
farm.
I
the
don't know
start.
how many of those are like the majority. I think there's just a certain amount of raiders and Mythic Plusers, which you would probably admit to, that are like anytime something's happening with the other person, they're just like, fuck you. You know? And like they're just like slinging shit basically. They're at the zoo. And I feel like there's a lot of people at the zoo this week. Like basically the most dobby raiders were just taking their chance to take a shot at Mythic Plusers
Yeah, this
being
was
in
their moment to
turmoil.
shine.
Yeah, because like they like, but I don't
Mhm.
think the majority of raiders at all like heavily dislike doing Mythic Plus beginning of the season because it is fun to like play the game.
Yeah. I think
Yeah,
also,
I mean, I
like,
would say
like you said,
majority.
Max, like putting good items from the last few bosses in the raid, I think it like makes a lot of sense when you look at it, right? Like that fixes a lot of problems with how gears worked in the past, right? Like the good trinkets from the last bosses, the good weapons are from the last bosses. Like that makes a ton of sense game design wise. I just think the implementing the Dinars this way turns that from a positive to a negative, and that's another like downside of doing it that way. But I think it's so much better than like in a vacuum. I think that's a really good way to make the loot work.
Yeah, I just feel like they'll okay. You could run that a bunch of times over and over again, and I still feel like the Mythic Pluser. I just think Mythic Plusers have become playing this game so differently, right? Like they let's just say you're saying like, oh, just find time to raid. I think there's a lot of Mythic Plusers, and I heard this when I was streaming earlier this week, that just literally do not have time. They are literally unable to commit to a schedule. Raiding for them is literally an impossibility as far as
Well, it's not just M plusers too; it's also heroic raiders.
Yeah.
Sure. Yeah. Absolutely. Whatever. Yeah. Same thing. So like people who are unable to commit to Mythic, which is content that requires 20 people to get online and also have a set schedule. There are people who can't play this game on a set schedule that fucking love WoW. And the way that they can play the game is doing AOTC rating, which you can pug, or it is doing Mythic Plus whenever they have a spare second to play World of Warcraft. And I think any one of those people's opinions, which I think is probably the majority of the people who are mad about this, I think are totally valid. Right? Because like just knowing that you can play World of Warcraft and you basically never have access to the best loot that it can offer because of those things just does feel like shit, right?
Yeah.
Heard.
Yeah, because I mean, it's not like it's not like these people can't clear Mythic, like I was saying earlier. Like they probably could if they were given the
Some
situation.
people can,
but
and that's
oh
okay,
yeah, sure. But I mean,
right?
like yeah, I mean, like some players are just like straight up not good enough, and then that's fair, right?
Yeah.
But
Well,
for a
most
lot of
people who can
players
do a
that
17
feel
key if they had the schedule,
yeah,
could at least
exactly.
get a late cutting edge, right?
The
Like
people that feel negatively about this is like
Yeah.
I just can't get this gear because of my circumstances, and it's not because like I can't do it. It's just because like I straight up don't have the time, or I don't want to allocate these specific parts of the nights for just to do this content, and like that's your only way of acquiring mythic gear. That feels really bad.
Yeah. I mean, I think if it's like a huge dub for WoW that there are people who exist and don't raid and play the game as much as high as M plusers do, and like it would suck to basically tell them like, no, actually this game isn't for you because you can't raid. Like that's how the game used to be, right? Like 15 years ago or whatever. It's like, yeah, you're playing the game this much, you've got to find a solid raiding team because that's like the only way to get good items and stuff. And that going back to that, I think would be worse. Like I think it's good that we have these M plusers in the game, and that should be a supported way to play the game. And implementing the Dinars this way feels like it feels like making those people second class citizens, which I think is like numerically those people should probably be first class citizens of this.
Exactly.
With how many more of them there
especially
are
if you're still
raiders.
playing the game. If you're those people and you're still playing the game at 11.1,
right? Exactly.
Just give them a fucking mythic trinket, man.
Yeah.
Look into your crystal balls for a second if you guys have them. Okay. And does Blizzard in 2 weeks walk this back, or is this a hard commit for the rest of the season? Because like the way I'm looking at it is, okay, the feedback overwhelmingly negative. I literally do not think I have seen someone have a positive take on this. Is this something they walk back? Because like I feel like they knew going into this, based on what they said already, was like they wanted to do it a different way, and then they intentionally didn't do it, which makes me feel like they feel pretty strongly about it working this way and not another way. That makes me feel like they won't walk it back. But recently when Mythic Plusers had a lot of complaints, they did like both before this expansion when they were like, hey, we're not changing Mythic Plus. And then people were like, what the fuck? And then they did, right? They like made a bunch of changes. Then going into this season, people were like, too many tank busters, shit's way too hard. They made it way easier. People really like Mythic Plus this season, right? So they've listened to Mythic Plusers complaints recently. Do they listen to this and do they change it, or do they iterate on it next season?
They doubled down, which makes me doubt it. Because like if it wasn't for that second post, I would have been like, oh, like as long as we complain loud enough, and surely they'll fix it. So hopefully you guys are out there complaining. I swear to God, we gotta complain so fucking hard. I am so radicalized. I am. This is feeling like fucking American politics. It's like straight up the M plusers versus the Raiders. But
that's right.
Yeah, I don't think it's that deep. I really think it's just like the bottom smallest percent of each one just constantly slinging shit at each other, but they're just very loud.
Okay, well, as long as you're a complainer, make sure you guys complain. Yeah.
Yeah. I will say I don't know why, because like there has been a lot of them responding to feedback in a good way in the past, like since 9.1.5. I would say the trend has been something like this would get better. But something about it, I'm getting the vibes of the pre 9.1.5
catalyst
blue post mindset from Blizzard. Like from the way these blue posts are written, it seems like they made this decision knowing that they had the other option, and they're like locked in. Like they've thought it through, and they've decided this is what they're going to do. And us complaining is going to be, they probably already expected us to complain about these things. And so I hope I'm wrong, but I get the feeling I'm feeling more pessimistic about this than I have been about like any of the other stuff that I've hoped, and many of which have gotten changed in the past 4 years.
Yeah. I feel like the reason why they won't is I imagine I could hear right now, I could close my eyes and hear a game developer saying something like, we're really, really afraid to do the most powerful thing, which is give you the best gear in the game for free at any point during a regular season. Like that is the singular thing. They'd probably make a convincing, compelling argument that I don't understand as to why, like the player psychology and why they play the game and stuff like that. There's probably a reason they're afraid of it. This just feels like the catalyst to me. Like they're going to release it like this, and then everyone's going to hate it, and then they're going to walk it back until they eventually give it to you. Speaking of that, walking it back, what do you think is the version of this if you were to like create the version of Dinars? When do you get it in a season, and what does it give you? Being fair, like not just like, okay, it's pretty easy to be like, I wish they gave us 16 Dinars on day one and we got every single piece of this. Obviously that's too extreme, right? Like what's the level that you think makes sense if you were to guess?
Personally, I think this timing is good, except I think that either require like a small number of total mythic boss kills to upgrade things to mythic, or require the heroic. Like I actually think the timing that this comes out is about right. We're talking, it's going to be like Renown 11 or something on the Renown track is going to be the week. Not for me, because I already exploited and I'm Renown 20, but for people that didn't exploit their Renown up to Renown 20.
Dorki, do you agree with that? Do you agree about the timing?
I mean, for me, it's not about the timing. For me, I just feel like if you play the game enough, you should be able to acquire these items. But that's how I see it. I'm more along the line of like Legion kind of thinking, where it's like, all right, you put in enough time and effort, you should be able to acquire stuff eventually. But the current problem, which is what like really frustrates a lot of people and players, is you just straight up can't acquire these. Like you straight up just cannot get Mythic House of Cards. There is no other possibility of getting this item aside from killing Mythic One-Armed Bandit. And in order to overcome One-Armed Bandit, like we've already talked about this, there are just so many logistical issues. So as long as they do something that allows players to work towards it, I don't care like if it's all right. So maybe you have to go do keys, and then after that you have to like do certain delves, and you have to like do certain world content, whatever. Just like fucking, just give players an option.
Yeah.
I
would actually be fine as well with like, okay, imagine you get the Dinars just buy you normal gear, and then say you can upgrade it to hero track with stuff that drops from the raid on any difficulty, and from tier 8 plus delves, and from like 5 or higher keys, right? Something like that. And then you can make your thing go to hero track from champion. And then if you do like 12 or higher keys, or mythic bosses of any kind, or last 2 heroic, you get credit towards upgrading them to myth track. Like that to me, I think would be a fair way to make it as well. Because I agree, like it shouldn't be like free loot pinata explosion. Although I think that erring on the side of free loot pinata midway through a season is much better than being on the other side of it, right? Like, again, we're talking about it's going to be May. The patch came out in February or March. There's not content on the horizon for a while, right? Like,
yeah, people are done with this game by now. Like, just
right, like
let them have fun.
There were a lot of people who were excited about not being done this patch because of Dinars, and like that's a really good thing, and they should take the W on that and have the system provide that longevity.
Yeah,
and err on the side
people.
of that.
That sucks. Yeah. That's like that makes me think of Plunderstorm, where like Plunderstorm was this like little pirate flag on the roadmap, and people maybe took off work or were otherwise just really excited to log in and do whatever they expect to be normal WoW content, and then it was just something totally not for them. And in this case, they basically told you what Dinars are going to be. So I'm going to still play this season because I want to experience this time where we get these things. And I want to get these pieces of gear that maybe I never get. And then having your expectations completely subverted and you get something completely different, totally, it all tracks with you being really fucking mad. It makes sense.
Which the comments, I made a YouTube video about this like when it came out, and I'm sure these comments were somewhat hyperbolic, but they were like overwhelmingly negative about this. But a lot of
I'm quitting this patch.
A lot of it was basically, like, okay, I'm done until either 11.2 or in a lot of cases midnight, or in some cases people are like, I'm out of here, right? But obviously, I think if you're out of here like entirely over this, I think it's probably more likely that those are just hyperbolic comments. But I don't know. I mean, maybe that you lose some people forever on it. I think in a lot more cases, it's people are just going to be done for the patch when otherwise they'd be still playing the patch. And like, that's a really exciting, any system that would have people still playing right now is a great idea.
Yeah. If you're Blizzard, how important is protecting the sanctity of loot and how loot works in your game versus making people like actually log off?
And we already have, like, we're giving people corruptions this patch, and then those are going away at the start of the next season, right? Like, I don't know, we're already kind of doing the, hey, you're going to be strong this season, and but then it's going away, right? Like, we're already going to incur some of that for these kind of corruptions that don't actually feel like old corruptions anyways, and don't have a lot of the old things that were associated with old corruptions. Like, I don't know, it feels like a much better place to spend that kind of danger budget would be Dinars.
It's just crazy. Like, this is what people have been looking forward for the entire patch. It's like, all right, we've had fun playing the first half of the patch, and then like, 0.5 is going to come and we're going to get our Dinars finally. Yay. And then, well, just kidding. You can't even fucking buy anything with these Dinars. So it just feels really bad.
Did we do like 50 entire minutes on just Dinars?
Yeah.
Dude, we are so
this
back.
is a great Dinar.
We're so back.
Yeah.
Oh,
We still have a lot more to go.
We never.
What do you guys think about the turbo boost?
Okay.
I thought that was cool. Why not? Why fucking
loot
not?
going up? So, okay. I don't like that I'm going to have to recraft all of my stupid crafted pieces with the new reagent. That's cringe. But I do like the hero and myth track going up 2 extra steps midway through the patch. That sounds great to me.
It gives you more loot progression. I guess like one maybe negative thing is like, I guess it's like the carrot on the stick. And like, I like, for example, I know there are people that maybe they're very not highly represented in numbers, but like JB, for example, would like a Mythic Plus season to start. You have Tournament Realm and Biss, and you're able to just like do all the highest content, and there's no gear progression, and you just do that, right? So like, if you're JB, this is the opposite of what you want. They're extending that point to when you could theoretically be at that level, to where you're basically still just farming. Like 2 extra myth on every piece is like extending multiple weeks for you to be like fully maxed out. But I know some people really like that, like I know there are people who once they're like unable to spend gilded crests, their time in which they are going to stop playing the season is rapidly approaching, right? And if it means you're still playing, whether it's carrot on the stick or not, it's a good thing for some people, right? Like it's some people love playing the game. A lot of other people love playing the game when you're also pushing up multiple bars at the same time, because that's like kind of what an MMO is all about.
Yeah, I like this because I've been preaching for a more prolonged grind throughout a patch, because I mean the patches have we've kind of like lost that grind for a while now, so it's kind of nice to have this. And I find it'll be interesting to see how it ends up playing, because it does kind of trivialize some content, right? We are gaining what, 10 item levels? I don't even know how much it is.
Well, I mean, we're still gaining item levels every week right now, right? So
no, but like when the turbo boost comes out, it's like straight up uncapped, and you can just like grind all the way to max item level.
Yeah, but the crest cap is going to be pretty close to irrelevant by that point, anyways, right? Like, the cap itself on crest is already it's in a lot of cases in 2 weeks' time, you're going to be gated by how many myth pieces you have, much more so than by how many crests you have, unless you like crafted weird or for multiple specs, that kind of stuff.
Yeah, dude, being gated by myth track items sucks bad, especially for all.
Yeah, and that's still going to be the case. But like the uncapping the crests at this point in the season is it's nice, but it only really matters because they're increasing the myth track. Otherwise, I don't think it would actually change really much of anything. But yeah, I think it's a cool idea. I don't know. That's one of the things where I'm like, oh, this seems interesting. This is like a worthy experiment to do. If it has some weird unforeseen downside, like I do think the recrafting everything is kind of annoying. I wish they kind of just bumped the eye level of the crafted stuff by 6 across the board.
I have a hidden thought. Like, what if, I mean, if you're a JB, right, and you find the time in which like you're not bis in the season, it maybe JB is like too extreme of an example, but you're someone that's just like, dude, I want to be able to like do the highest keys that are available this season. Pushing that farther back makes people not want to like seriously play and push until that point. I don't know how many of those people there are, you know.
So that is a good point, right? Like it's sort of been a phenomenon since Dragonflight, where, I mean, even before then, obviously, like most world first keys or most of the best keys of a season are done at the end of the season rather than the start. But it's become increasingly true that like we are getting an injection of power in the 0.5 and the 0.7 patches, and so it kind of feels like it's not worth pushing keys in the 0.0 patches, especially when they shape up the meta as well, right? Like Og literally got introduced in a 0.5 patch, but a lot of times there are seasons where it's like, okay, these specs got buffed in the 0.5 patch, and so like all the best keys of the season are done with them. I do think it's a little bit of a shame, yeah, that it sort of feels like pushing keys early in the season is diminished in value.
I've heard that a lot, actually.
Yeah. Okay, isn't this kind of in a macro sense what we've been asking for, though? Like, we've had this conversation multiple times on the podcast where we were like, hey, man, an entire expansion doesn't need to be defined by borrowed power. But if you could just cook halfway through these seasons, I think that'd be pretty fun. Isn't that like exactly what they're doing?
Yeah.
But there's a consequence of that.
That's what I've been asking for, too, yeah.
I think the one thing that would be really cool is if they had like a mid-season checkpoint. Like, imagine before they dropped the 0.5 patch, they handed out another round of M+ titles or something, right? And then it's like, oh, the people who pushed early get a cool thing.
We've been asking for that for a while. That's just smart, because there are simply multiple points of a season that are relevant, and it all being at the end doesn't really make sense.
Yeah, I mean, there's still people who push early in the season because just they're the people who have fun pushing keys in M+, which is a condition that I won't go into in greater length now, but. You know,
I mean, that's most players. Most players just like to play for fun. Like, it's not
right. Yeah,
too complicated. Like, if they just hop on and just like grind some score for fun. But also for a lot of people who pug, they need to stay on top of the treadmill. They can't just fall behind. Like, they can't just not push and then like later in the season expect to be brought to a plus 19 key or whatever.
You need to keep the IO.
Yeah,
like
I mean, not just the IO, but you also need to be keeping on top of the meta strategies, keeping on top of like the routes and all that.
Yeah, I think like a mid-season checkpoint would go a long way towards making this not a downside for people that do want to push early in the season.
Yeah, it's just one thing that's been sucking really recently. At least like this is very specific to high-end keys. It's not like as relevant for lower keys, but for people who are trying to compete for ranks at the higher keys, it just feels kind of pointless because a lot of the Chinese teams are just significantly ahead. Like, these guys are straight up 10
and if it wasn't the Chinese teams, right, it's like the Mythic Raiders, right? The person in a World 100 guild versus in a World 1000 guild that has, you know, the Gallywix and the House of Cards items now.
Or what about the first, like, what about right when the race world first ends and all these like 20 splits, giga juiced, full mythic gear, like world first raiders show up into keys, right? That would be, if there was like a competition early, that would be so fucked.
That was such a real phenomenon back in BFA. I don't remember what tier it was. I remember you guys came out of Race the World first, and then there was like a group that formed up. It was like Evade, Fired Up, I think it was maybe Healing and Atlas tanking or something like that. It was like some
just like a random assortment of people, not even a Mythic Plus team.
These guys were so fucking geared. They were just like astro dunking on every single top key. It was like, all right, you know, like everyone's been pushing these 24s and we've been like getting like all these world first keys done, and then these guys just come in and they just get like all the world first keys and they're just like hard slamming all the keys,
and then they quit.
So that was a real phenomenon. Yeah, and then they quit.
Yeah, so that would maybe be a downside of rewarding things too early in the season. But I feel like I guess the 0.5 does come out pretty early. Like the Hall of Fame is not even closed when the 0.5 comes out.
I think since Crest existed, that gap that has existed post-Race World First is certainly less than it used to be, but it's still a few eye levels for sure.
Well, now it's just a Chinese gap.
And the best trinkets and stuff. You have all the like bare minimum going into raid on the very first, before you go into Mythic ever, every single one of these people has a hero track of whatever trinket they want, right? That's just so different experience than everyone else in the game.
Did you guys see, by the way, speaking of Hall of Fame, Blizzard changed Hall of Fame so that you need to kill Bandit, Muggsy, and Gallywix to get Hall of Fame now, so that the people buying the Gallywix lockouts
spent 80 million gold for no reason.
Yeah, that's so crazy. The greatest heist of the century was whatever guild sold them that lockout. Oh my god.
Yeah.
82 million gold.
I wish it was
absolutely nothing. Yeah. Genius. Art of the deal.
I mean, it's also just like a loophole that it would have taken something like this for them to fix it in the first place. Because like in every raid before this, you would have progressed through every boss to get to the last boss, because that's just what made sense. This is like a very unique situation, and yeah, them doing that isn't surprising.
Apparently it did like screw a bunch of guilds that like killed Gallywix and had killed Bandit or Muggsy before this change. It wasn't tracking that, so they had to go back and kill those bosses again. It's like once Blizzard changed this, you now have to kill all three after the change. If you hadn't already got Hall of Fame.
That seems bad.
Yeah, that seems to me like a case of, okay, this was probably not worth doing until we could make it not work that way. Or until next season, because like griefing those guilds in this way, that happened to Kalamazi, Liquid Caster, friend of the show, hater of the bench.
Beautiful.
It ended up having to do those rekills, so that's tough. But I that's like a bug thing or unintended.
Rekilling one-armed bandit as well. That is one of the worst rekill bosses of all time. I don't know if you guys have delved too far into that, but
that's been the hardest boss to reclear.
Dude, I think we're like 50 pulls into reprog with our alt run on Bandit now. I
heard stories about that.
It's been tough.
It's so sneaky hard.
Yeah. Next week we got it though. A little 9% buffs on the way to trivialize that for us, but man, that is not a fun boss to wipe to and farm, and it's a very easy boss to wipe to and farm. Okay, what other stuff do we have?
What about MoP Classic? Are you guys interested in that at all?
What about MoP Classic? Also, we could talk more about Plunderstorm and MDI.
Yeah, that would be great.
Those are some topics our listeners love. No, okay, make the case for MoP Classic.
I'm just curious if you guys are interested in MoP Classic at all.
I'm not personally.
Dude, I'm surprised I'm not, and I think it's just because I just don't play a ton of games right now. Like I'm just at the point where, gaming, there's just the struggle between your hobby becoming your job and everything about that. But like MoP for me, like I played the game before MoP, but MoP was when I was like became an absolute degenerate in this game, and every bit of nostalgia that people have for Classic and TBC, I have that for MoP. I have frequently made the assertion that like class design in MoP was the best it ever was, even though I'm almost positive that is rose-tinted glasses, and once that comes out, that would be proven to definitely not be true, but I just fucking loved it. All of that being said, I just can't find myself playing Classic. I tried in Kata when the game definitely got a bit more modern, and it's just every time, it's the same feeling every time I play Classic, where I'm just like, all the changes they made from this expansion to the new game all make sense, and the game is currently better than that. If you just game, because I'm purely a gameplay only guy and not usually very motivated by nostalgia. So I don't see myself playing it right now, even though I don't know. Part of me wants to. If a Classic expansion is ever going to get me, it's this one. But I don't even know when it comes out, so that would probably tell you that I probably don't care that much.
They haven't said.
Oh, okay.
It should be soonish though, right? Because we're in Dragonsoul Farm, right?
Yeah, the beta has been given out to.
Oh yeah, it's like it's in the earliest stages of beta, right?
Well, maybe they will keep it true to form. Like old Dragonsoul Farm was super long, so maybe they're gonna hit that. Just like hit the super long farm for that, just to make it like the old days.
Yeah.
Yeah, I've been I've been nostalgic for Legion Classic. I'm just like imagining a world where Legion Classic exists and whatever retail exists, and you can just hop on either game modes and do M plus. Or if they even have like the Legion MDI, holy fuck, I am in. I am sold.
I would love.
I bet they would. I bet they do an M plus thing whenever Legion comes out.
Yeah, personally, I would love to see a Mythic Plus tournament of Legion Classic just to see the skill difference and how much better people have gotten at Mythic Plus from then until now. Because I feel like there will be multiple key levels higher timed of basically every single MDI key purely based on player skill increasing and overall dungeon competency being significantly higher. Like the idea of having like a stop rotation in Legion, just straight up like in the MDI, that wasn't a thing. So like we've just gotten so much more proficient at doing dungeon content.
Dude, it's one of those fantasies too. Like you ever have those fantasies where you're thinking about like going back in time into like certain moments and just like knowing all the things to do or like being really good at that certain thing?
Yeah.
You know what I'm talking about?
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's like basically going to be Legion Classic when you can just relive it and just.
I think there's going to be Legion Remix. People think is like soonish, right?
I think they should do that. I think Legion Remix would be fucking high. By the way, I think just in general, it's been a while since it's happened. But the whole remix idea fucking owns. I know there was a lot of technical issues with the last one, but still, if you brought it up in Twitch chat the other day about remix, and like most people are like, dude, that was so fucking sick. I didn't play in MoP. I got to go back and get all his cosmetics. And that's even with it being very flawed, which it would certainly, you would hope, be less flawed the next time they do it because they learned all those lessons. I just think that's a slam dunk. And I think certainly what will exist at the end of this expansion, because I strongly doubt they're doing Faded again, just seems like something that they got bad feedback for last time. So I think they'd probably go harder into Remix.
Yeah, also there's a raid teleport at the end of the Renown track, so that used to be a Faded reward. This time we're getting it in the patch, so
that's
no Faded confirmed.
Confirmed.
No leaks.
Yeah.
That's crazy. That's some crazy leaks.
Do you worry, Dorki, though, that like you're like being able to be transported back in time and you know all these things, but you can still go do it? Are you afraid of it not living up to that feeling? Because like I basically my take is there's nothing that can ever replace like what it's like to play a great game right when it comes out again. Like that's just the best time. Every game I've like PUBG and Apex when they came out, oh my god, fucking euphoric, so good. But like nothing could ever be the same as when everyone's playing a game for the first time again. It's just so specific. And I wonder if like for me, getting my hopes up about that about Legion would like I would be let down, you know?
Yeah, I don't know personally because I've never been in that boat yet, but people have been through that, and people have always talked about how great 2019 Classic was and how it felt almost like vanilla. And same with people who have been playing Oblivion recently. People who have been playing Oblivion Remastered. They've been saying how great it is. I mean, I've never played an Elder Scrolls game before, so I don't know what it's like, but that's kind of like cool to see that people are actually excited for all these.
Dude, I loved Oblivion. I haven't played the remaster yet, but I'm thinking because I am also in the camp of just like you can't do it again. It's not the same. But maybe with Oblivion, it's like enough of a remake that maybe it'll be worth playing again.
Dude, not to tangent us too hard, but gonna throw a free ad out there real quick. Another game that just came out is that like Expedition 33 thing. If you guys
I'm playing that
game fucking owns. If you are someone who is okay with turn-based combat, which I know like turns a lot of you guys away, no pun intended, that you need to play this game. And I would argue this game is so good and iterates on turn-based in so many ways that you should, even if you've been like, I fucking hate turn-based and you've got some dollars to throw around and are not worried about risking buying it, or it's on Game Pass, by the way, for free if you have that. Well, not free because you pay for Game Pass, but you should.
So you're losing money if you don't play this. Yeah, and you have Game Pass.
It is that good of a game. I've also it's the only game in the last like 7 or 8 years that I've played where I'm not currently skipping cutscenes like 10 hours into the game.
Yeah,
crazy. The game fucking owns so hard.
It's so good. I have Dorki. Have you played any Expedition 33 yet?
I've heard a lot about this. By the way, this is a great endorsement. You guys are doing amazing. But
free ad.
The game slaps hard.
If anyone wants to pay for us to advertise your shit, it'll sound just like that too.
Yeah. We're gonna make it as natural as possible. No, but like I've actually been looking into for a turn-based game, and this actually seems like right up my alley. Like,
bro,
I saw a little bit of it.
Yeah,
and
you
I'm
played
like
metaphors and stuff, right? It's literally that, but there's also like Dark Souls timing some dodges on attacks, and then like
the Dark Souls campfire system, like bonfire system. It's very familiar in that way.
It's so good, and the only downside is it's like French, but you know what can you do? It can't be perfect.
But I mean, I've been looking at it. I've been checking it out. I might try it out, but I've just been kind of busy with MDI stuff, so
yeah,
I haven't had a time.
You should like when you have a free couple of days. I think it's the kind of game that is going to one shot you.
Yeah, I've been playing First Berserker because on my off time. It's like a Souls-like game where you pretty much parry. That game was like hard as hell, by the way. I spent like fucking 50 hours to beat that game.
The one thing about Expedition 33 is it definitely does that Elden Ring bullshit where the boss like starts winding up and then keeps winding up even more, then keeps winding up even more, then you dodge and then he attacks you and you die.
Yeah.
But you know, that's what it is. That's funny.
This game, whenever I travel, I like have a hard separation between gaming and like real life. It's why I don't vlog. It's why I don't make content when I travel. This game made me, I like had a realization like yesterday. I'm like, I can't just like not play this game for 2 weeks while it's still out. So I like went out and panic bought like a gaming laptop that I can play on the plane and at night when I'm bored or whatever, when I'm on vacation. And that's how good the game is. It's just goated.
Where did this game even come from? Like, was it?
It's like a small. It's the first game from this French studio,
made by 30 people, by the way.
Yeah,
crazy.
Yeah, it's their first title or something. It's crazy. Yeah, it's
playing every single game they ever make.
Yeah, they get the FromSoft pass. All right, let's do our Patreon question.
Sure.
This one comes from that says, "Hello, Pod Crew. What are your thoughts on classes with similar class design? I'm used to maining DK and now play Ret Pally, and this season's Ret playstyle feels almost identical to Frost DK Breath builds. It's just a minigame of keeping your Divine Hammer up for as long as possible. I'm not sure what it is, but I'm loving Ret Paladin's Divine Hammer gameplay way more than DK Breath build. Are there any other cases you guys can think of when classes had designs this similar? Is it good for the game?"
So just in general, I don't think it's bad because, like, let's just take Surrender to Madness, right? Like, if you were a sick Shadow Priest player, you absolutely love that. If at some point in the game they add something like that has that many stakes or that much stakes attached to it and the damage that you're rewarded for the gameplay, only Shadow Priest got to experience it. So, like, other classes could experience something like that. DK Breath, I know a lot of you guys hear that and you're like, I'm fucking mad. And a big reason for that is they never did a good enough job of making sure that Obliterate was like competitive when Breath was a thing, where like, for example, momentum builds with DH, you could always play the easiest fucking like perma I-beam demon form, like super easy version of DH. And it was always either better or very fucking close to where you didn't feel bad if you didn't play momentum. DK horrendously fucked that up. So the thing with Ret is they made it like easier to manage. It's also not as punishing to drop as like Breath was. Like your entire damage doesn't fall off a cliff, and it's easier to keep up. So it's they did. What'd you say, Dorki?
It's lower cooldown too.
Yeah, lower cooldown. So it's not like a 2 minute. Like imagine how bad Divine Hammer would feel if it was easy to drop, much harder to play in. You had to tunnel it instead of just playing Ret Paladin normally. And then if you dropped it, you felt like shit for a minute and a half. You know what I mean? Like that is why Breath sucked. So yeah, it owns. Also, Ret Paladin, I talked about this recently with someone. I think an achievement in gaming that they made a spec so easy and still so fun to play if you're good at the game. Those two things are really, really hard to do at the same time. And
yeah, we talked about it last week about how like at least I made the assertion that you could like Ret Pally was pretty easy, and there's definitely more to it than I memed, but it is definitely true that like if you screw up Ret Pally, it doesn't feel like you've been banished to the Shadow Realm for the next minute, right? It's just like, oh, I messed that up a little bit, right? I lost a little bit of damage, but the spec is still fun to play, even if you're not playing it perfect, which is a huge accomplishment. Yeah, Ret. The more classes being like Ret is better. Are there other good examples? Like all the tanks, I think, play pretty differently to each other, right?
Yep, definitely.
Yeah, the
I mean,
healers.
there's some similarities.
Well,
but
tanks, like the thing is like once you get tanking, like you get the bit of like using your active mitigation and like when to use strong cooldowns, and you're used to that line of thinking, that directly transfers to every tank. But if you break up the gameplay of them, they are quite different. Like playing a Prot Warrior and a Blood DK are completely fucking different. Playing a Guardian Druid and a Vengeance Demon Hunter are very, very different, right? There's some that have some similarities, like pressing Shield Block and Demon Spikes. You could kind of like bind them to the same button, even though there's like I mean, you almost certainly do. But like that element feels extremely similar, but there's other things that are totally different too. I think tanking is fair to say that.
Yeah, for DPS,
I mean, there are some that are a lot more technical because I do know Demon Hunter is a big one where a lot of people struggle to really grasp Demon Hunter, especially for the whole like how you set up your movement and
grouping
all that.
mobs, getting threat,
that one's
very hard.
One.
Yeah, because it's bugged. Blizzard, by the way.
No, actually, so they've actually done a good job fixing a lot of the bugs. So I don't want to be like the fake information guy because I mean there has been a lot of fake information out there about Demon Hunter. Demon Hunter actually has most of its bugs fixed. The only major real bug that I'm aware of is where if you put a sigil out and combat state changes. So like say you sigil before you pull the pack and then like someone runs into the pack, right? Your sigil is not going to generate shit for aggro. That's the only real bug that I know of right now. But I mean, there were a lot of bugs in the past, and bug or threat is a major problem right now for Eldrazi. So I'm not going to say like it's not a problem at all. They do need to address that. It's been such a big problem. I know it's a bit of a tangent, but they really need to fix this. I don't know how frustrating it's been for all the tank and DPS players out there.
Yeah, I have a lot of trouble keeping threat on my DH. I was hoping I could blame bugs, but if it's just
it's not bugs. It's just the class like straight up just functions really badly right now because you require like 3 globals before you can actually start getting your damage. I mean, way more globals. The class is just like boggled down by millions of globals before you can actually do any meaningful AoE damage that will generate aggro.
Are there other like classes that do play very similarly? I'm trying to think like Havoc. That doesn't really play like anything. Rogue specs. I guess the rogue specs can sometimes feel sort of similar. Like Sub and Sin at least can sometimes feel kind of similar.
I feel like a lot of melee specs are fairly similar in the regards of like you kind of just largely building and
I guess like, if you boil it down to builder spender,
like for many years, like Feral Druid and Assassination Rogue, like Rip was Rupture and Rake was Garrote and Eviscerate was Ferocious Bite, and there was a few bells and whistles that were different, but like majorly very similar. But I think melee is another one of those, and ranged, where like once you get the bit, once you understand casting and like kind of how and when to do that and when to move and when to greed, when to not greed, to where it actually starts feeling good, you just kind of, it's really easy to play other ranged, where like if you're really sick at melee, you're probably be good at other melee, but it's absolutely a bigger jump to like play ranged, even though they're both DPS. That's why I think a lot of them feel similar. I really respect the classes, by the way, that have 3 DPS specs and all 3 of them have very different play styles. I think that's really hard to do, and I think they do that well. I think Warlock is like that. I think
Hunter,
not Rogue, Hunter. I mean Hunter, absolutely, but even Mage, like Mage feels that way as well. Like Arcane is so much fucking different than Fire, right?
Yeah.
The last class that felt like Frosty Cape Breath was Venthyr Boomkin. You guys remember that shit? Just like
if you had a bad cooldown window, a sub kind of feels like that too. Like if you mess up your burst as a sub rogue, it's over.
The best part about the Venthyr Moonkins as well is they get stunned when they screw it up bad enough, right? That's like the stun of shame.
Yeah, I wonder if Blizzard could ever figure out a way to do that right. Whenever you've looked at things like Venthyr Moonkin or Ashen Hollow, so 3 or 4 minute cooldowns that actually are as powerful as they should be for that long of a cooldown. You know what I mean? Like Meta was a 4 minute cooldown for a long time, but it wasn't powerful enough to not feel like shit that it was that long. Like just looking at it very basically, if you have a 2 minute cooldown and you're going to have a 3 minute cooldown, that 3 minute cooldown should be 50% stronger than the 2 minute cooldown, right? Just using basic math. That has almost never been true. And the few times that it has, were like Unholy DK Burst, for example, on 3 minutes, or Ashen Hollow or Venthyr Moonkin, it's just it turns out just having one single cooldown, no matter how long it is, carry whatever you're doing that hard, it's just like game-breakingly strong. And I wonder if they'll ever figure out a way to not have it break the game and actually have meaningful cooldowns that are that long and as powerful as they should be.
I don't feel like it's a problem, though. I feel like it should come with that cost. It kind of sucks at times. Like it's hard to remove that friction without keeping the impact of the cooldown.
Well, why do you think every class is a 2 minute and 1.5 minute class now? It's because I think they figured out they have not figured out a way to actually do longer cooldowns.
Yeah, no, 100%. I mean, it's the same as how they remove dot classes for the most part, or
yeah, and then
until the season where they're good again and then they're all OP.
Do you think they're gonna keep that? Do you think like dots get smoked next patch? Because like that's another hidden reason why One Arm Bandit was so difficult, is that like it was a randomly really hard boss, sneaky hard, and it also required the specific comp that people were playing alts of, and that just like compounds difficulty so much. And I just wonder how they view that internally.
Yeah, I'm curious as well. I feel like dots, I feel like they're going to get nerfed from where they are right now, like how good the dot classes are.
Yeah, so they learned this lesson in BFA, and then they unlearned it, and were like, we can make dots good again. And they're like, wait, no, we actually couldn't. That was actually a good decision to have them. But I don't know. I like dots being in the game.
It's nice that they are cool.
I like dots being in the game
too. Same. But is that
but are dots good for the game if every single raid there's a scenario like this where you have a multi-target fight and shadow priests are just simply, it is impossible for them to not gap everyone if dots are good, you know? Like how do you it's hard.
Can't be done. Yeah.
I mean, the way I see it is it just needs to be earlier in the raid tier. Like it can't be something that happens towards the end of the tier. Like you can't have One Armed Bandit being the dot cleave fight. Otherwise, it becomes too restrictive.
Then that makes raid design so one-dimensional, though. You know, like the bosses near the end of the raid. I mean, most single target-y bosses near the end of the raid, I think, usually have a higher success chance than ad type things as far as like players liking them. But
yeah, exactly.
But I also think that is a bit one-dimensional.
It is, but I mean, is that really a problem? Because I mean, like, let's look at SLG for example, right? Like SLG was a notoriously bad fight, but if it was early in the fight or early in the tier, it wouldn't be as big of a problem. Whereas like Sludge Fist was highly regarded.
Okay, multi-target dots would have been good fights since BFA, but dots were nerfed. Just like compile some list of bosses in your head. Have any of those bosses been fucking bangers? Just like super goated multi-target, not your prototypical like single target or single target with ad spawns that you have to burn. Like, have any of them been Sludge Fist, Manaroth, Nexus Princess Kaiveza, Rygalon? Have they been that good?
What are the fights we're thinking about here, right?
Silken
like prototype
Court.
Pantheon.
So, yeah, no. Later in the raid, later bosses. So to go with what Dorki's saying, like basically what my line of thinking is, if you just remove multi-target bosses from the end of a raid, do you just get better raid bosses on average? Is what I'm thinking. So like what bosses would, like Lords of Dread would count for this, Silken Court would count for this. Last 3 or 4 bosses, obviously Stone Legion, that's pretty far back, but Kel'Thuzad. Has there been a last 3 bosses kind of multi-target dots would have been insane boss where it was just super fucking good, and losing multi-target bosses near the end of the raid would be bad for the game?
Does Tindril count?
No. Does Ansrak count?
Yes. Right? Because bro, current dots on those acolytes would have went crazy as fuck.
Yeah.
Same with P2. Not P1, but like basically P2 and P3 dotting would have been absolutely insane. So Ansarek is an example of that being true. Although I think people's opinions on Ansarek can vary. Some people fucking hate that boss. I think that boss is great. Right?
Yeah.
Depends.
Of course,
you also wouldn't need a stack dot classes for Ansarek, would you?
Well, okay,
probably not.
So you'd run into the issue of like if you ran too many daughters, the AoE on the spiders and the AoE on roots in P1 would have become more difficult. And the more AoEers you bring, the more the acolytes would have been more difficult.
It was kind of
they also would cannibalize each other, right? Like you only get those spawns are far enough apart that
the more daughters you bring, the less valuable the dots are.
Yeah.
The more Fury Warriors you bring, the less value every single class's burst AoE is.
Mm-hmm.
That's why raid comp building is the coolest thing ever in this game.
Yeah.
Seriously.
And I do think that, dots being a strong thing that some classes have does add a lot to raid comp design, right? Like,
Yeah,
that
it really
does make that more interesting.
It does make it interesting, yeah.
But it's just like how many guilds in the world are having an interesting thought on raid comp design versus like, okay, well, we have to play these people because they're the people who push buttons well and like hope they're on good classes.
I think it also doesn't help that the dot specs aren't fairly balanced because right now Shadow Priest just like hard dunks every other dot spec. Like when I'm playing Boomkin on One Armed Bandit, it feels so fucking bad because I'm supposed to be the dot class, like I'm supposed to shine, but these motherfuckers are taking all my damage.
Yeah, you are the one dot class that isn't like super crazy on that fight.
Yeah, and like even Aflock is like still inferior to Shadow Priest, like as good as they are.
Yeah, for what it's worth though, I feel like Boomkins don't get mad at me, or I mean, do I don't fucking care. But like, I feel like with Starfall existing in that niche, always, anytime Starfall is good, right? Like Moonkins will be better at that fight than anyone else. Because you have Starfall, you also probably can't have dots. Does that make sense? Because like you already dominate a niche that exists in every raid. So like, do they want to give you another one?
That niche has always been near the start of a raid, right? The like Moonkin fight.
Yeah.
The sticks. I guess.
Good point.
Well, what would be an example? Broodkeeper Diurna kind of P1
was like okay, it was like really good.
Moonkins would have been crazy good on Ansarek if they were not the worst class in the game. Like if they were just average tuning Moonkin, they would have shredded Acolytes. They would have been so good. But they were just specifically bad in that raid, like unplayably bad.
Yeah.
Well, but I mean, how though? I don't really.
They just did dog shit damn, and they were very killable as opposed to unkillable. You wanted
but that's only because their AoE damage sucks, or I mean, their dot sucks because their AoE damage was really good.
We're not talking about dots here. We're talking about like Starfall, like literally just Starfall alone. If Moonkins were tuned normally, would have been the best Acolyte damage in the entire game because of how spread.
Well, I mean, the problem is like right now, Boomkin they've moved a lot of damage away from Starfall into like actual AoE cleave. Because I mean, they've been dominating M+ for a while now. Because like like if you have clumped mobs, they actually do a shit ton of damage. If you're doing like sticks, they're doing a shit ton of damage. But anytime you're doing actual spread cleave, they don't do jack shit.
Well, I mean, like sticks is a good example, right? Like Moonkins you needed a certain amount of Moonkins to do OG sticks because the bombshells were very spread out and they were the only class that could get them to 70% reliably, right? Like that kind of niche is what I'm talking about. But Dratnos is right. That has very seldom been. I'm struggling to think of a late tier boss besides obviously Sylvanas where Starfall like completely defined the fight.
Yeah, Sylv was also like it was also largely Ravenous Frenzy, right? That was like the thing that made that a Moonkin
Well, no, I mean
fight.
You could play Night Fae Moonkin and they still dominate.
Oh, yeah,
it was just how spread. It was just how spread those chains were and how healthy they were. They were just goated. Intermission, just probably impossible to do the intermission without a single Moonkin. Are we fucking all tapped out? Are we tapped out of talking points here?
We've meandered pretty far from the original question, but it led to a good discussion.
What the fuck? What was the question?
It was about like specs that played similarly to each other.
I mean, I feel like we gave them what they
had
want.
A good discussion.
Yeah, for a living. We know what we're doing.
Yeah.
Is it good?
I think, I mean, one thing, there has been breaking news. Blizzard's extending the Hall of Fame for another week again.
Ooh.
It's like, it was about to fill, or they were like, no, you guys get an extra reset again. So I think that's a little bit more valid, though, if there are any guilds that need to do the rekills to get it. That would be such a cringe way to lose a Hall of Fame.
So if you guys want to buy a lockout from us, we will give you a one-armed bandit lockout to kill the last three. And by the way, you can kill all three of those bosses in one raid week. So just let us know.
Wow.
80 million.
Can you if you have not yet killed those bosses?
Yeah, it'd be easy. It's fine. Just we'll give you the lockout.
Right. Yeah.
Okay, so the question is, do people actually care about the Hall of Fame or do you care about the ranking? Because you would still be the same ranking, but you just get Hall of Fame. Like, does that really matter?
That we've talked about this before, I think.
Yeah, we talked about this last week, which is like, do you count the rank of getting 8 out of 8 or of killing the end boss? Because a simple fix for that would just be for like all the ranking sites to only count when a guild gets 8 out of 8 rather than when they kill the end boss.
Well, the conversation I'm thinking about was actually, I think, multiple months ago or maybe a single month, but we were talking about whether guilds like raid more while Hall of Fame is available, and then as soon as Hall of Fame is gone, they actually drop the raid hours because that specific feat is now gone. If they still want to get cutting edge, but like why still try? We're gonna get cutting edge eventually. Why continue raiding this time? And we basically came up with like we don't know of any guilds that actually operate like that. Maybe you guys who are listening are around the world 200, 300 rank or whatever where those decisions are made. But that would basically give you the answer to the question of like, does Hall of Fame matter? Because people would show that with do people pull extra raid days
I think so.
in the week of Hall of Fame to specifically get it if they're close? My like just using that sounds like something that people would do.
Yeah, I think if you're close and it's like, hey, we can add a Monday and get Hall of Fame or kill it on Tuesday and miss. Like, I think I'm pretty sure I've seen guilds pulling for Hall of Fame,
but people do that for non-Hall of Fame.
Yeah,
like people like you're just near the end of the raid. Hey, we could finish this. We have 4 days till our next raid. Do you guys want to raid tomorrow? You know, like I don't know, like that happens anyway.
I do think Hall of Fame is an extra motivator though that makes that more common. Like the week that if it's the week the Hall of Fame closes, I bet.
What does Hall of Fame
guilds
give you?
add Titan Slayer, the Chrome King. Yeah,
that's cool. You know,
it's a cool title.
Yeah, I mean this is kind of like getting Gladiator. You know, like everyone wants that Gladiator rank 1 title.
Yeah.
Sweet.
All right. I think that is going to be it for our episode this week. We may be on or off the next few weeks. We're going to figure it out, but there may be a break or maybe not. We'll try not to have a break, but there might be one. So I don't know. Stay tuned. We'll make a podcast whenever we can, like we usually
maybe
do.
We'll get like a guest or something. Yeah. Sorry for the delayed episode.
Yeah. Sorry for the delayed episode.
Yeah, we had a lot of scheduling conflicts.
Yeah, we'll figure it out though. But yeah, thanks for watching and listening. Adios.
Adios.